Hello, welcome to episode 23 of Followers of the Cross podcast. This is your host, Jason Reynolds. Today's episode is an interview with Julie Hall. She is the author of the Life After trilogy. Book 1, called Huntress, is available now. Book 2, called Warfare, will come out in the fall. Life After is Hall's fictional account of the afterlife. She uses biblical themes to create her story, but she says the series is not biblical descriptions of heaven. However, Hall has a purpose for doing this. She wants to reach both Christians and non-Christians in the young adult fiction market. Hall says that the Christian book market needs more young adult fiction. I'll let Julie tell you more.
Huntress is the first book in a trilogy called Life After. It's a series title, and Life After is about Audrey, who's an unlikely girl who dies and is chosen to protect the living against Satan's forces, against demons for the rest of eternity. And Huntress, which is the first book I mentioned in the series, chronicles Audrey's struggles with training to become a demon hunter and her doubts surrounding the job that God's given her to do. So really, the series has action, adventure, and romance, which is what people love in young adult novels. But at its core, it's really about a girl who is doubting that there's a loving God who truly cares, who cares about her, which I think is something that a lot of us, and especially teenagers, kind of can relate to, whether God has a purpose and a plan for our life, and when things are going crazy, if that's really good and if he cares. And so that's kind of at the core of what the books are about. But I've framed it in this fantastical world that is, both based on biblical stuff, but not biblically accurate at the same time. So you had asked about kind of the afterlife that I framed. Is that what your question was?
Yeah, that was one. And just how's it sort of been received by both groups of the marketplace so far?
Yeah, actually, that's a great question. When I was writing this novel, so to back up for the people that don't know anything about it, is the main character, the protagonist, Audrey, the book opens and she's just died and she's entered into this afterlife. And the afterlife that I've created, it has some biblical aspects to it, but in no way am I trying to say that this is what heaven will be like, because she's still fallible, she still sins, she still makes mistakes in the afterlife. In fact, she wakes up in the afterlife without her memories of her earthly life and has to get those back later. And so when I was writing this book, God and the Holy Spirit and Jesus Christ are characters in the book, and but I've put them into a world that isn't straight theologically, biblically based heaven. And so I thought, my gosh, Christians are going to be sending me hate mail because I've created a heaven that's not real, and non-Christians are going to be yelling at me because it sounds like I'm shoving Christianity down their throat. And I haven't had even a speck of that anywhere, which is, phenomenal, which is best case scenario. It's really been well received by both. I think the Christians look at it and understand that it's a work of fiction. And so I've taken creative license and see where the more biblical truth comes in with Audrey and her relationship with God and her struggling with her faith, and appreciate that. And then non-Christians, I wanted to make sure that this was a book that was exciting and was fast-paced and kept your attention, and that the non-believers that are reading it and are seeing that and liking that and aren't thinking that I'm trying to shove Christianity down their throat. And even in my endorsers, when I went to, when I first finished the book, and, I'm an unknown author, this is my debut book, I went and contacted different authors to try to get endorsements. It's just kind of part of the machine, part of what you do. And half of my endorsers are secular authors and half of them are Christian authors. And so, and I've questioned both of them about, the different themes and what they thought about it. And, I was pleasantly surprised on how they were all very accepting in different ways to the book. And so.
Awesome. If there were one message that you could get to the readers, what would that message be?
The one message that I'd want to get to the readers is that God cares and that he does have a plan and a purpose for your life. And that even when things, you don't understand what that is, that God is still there and God's still good. And that's really what my protagonist struggles with, is just feeling like she's been forgotten, or that God doesn't understand her, or God doesn't know her. And so the message is that God does care, God is out there, God is in control, and you can count on that and hang on to that, when life feels like it's spiraling out of control.
What was most fun of writing this book? Was there a particular scene or a particular character that was the most fun or most fulfilling?
Yeah, no, that's actually a great question. There was a lot of things that were fun about writing this book, and then there were a lot of things that were difficult about writing this book. And the things that were fun about writing this book was when I could really get into the scene and do more of the action that propels the book forward. My husband and I actually took sword fighting classes to learn how to learn, and that was something fun that we could do together, to learn kind of how the movements of how that would be. And I'm pretty an active person. I took kickboxing for a lot of years and things like that. And so writing those scenes where, my protagonist is actually getting into the middle of a fight with some, funky looking demon or Satan himself and stuff was a lot of fun for me to write and get into. And the scenes that are more theological based, like her interactions with God, and in the other books, the next book, is the Holy Spirit and Jesus Christ. Those ones were, I won't say that they weren't fun to write, but they were certainly more pressure to write on those, because I wanted to make sure that I was portraying the Godhead in a true way, and they took a lot more focus, and I agonized a lot more over every single word that went into those, where some of the other scenes I could just write for the fun of writing.
Yeah. So is there anything else about the first book that people should know that we haven't mentioned yet?
I think that just know that, there are books out there like this that, I one of the reasons that I actually went ahead and wrote this book, I've always wanted to write a book, and I love reading young adult fiction in general. And the reason why I chose to write a book like this is because there just doesn't seem to be a lot of fiction out there for Christians, young adult fiction, for Christians to read. And that's fun and exciting and action-based. And I guess I just want people to know that, that is out there. You just need to look for it and find it and start championing it, because it is a huge, huge market in the secular world. I mean, the young adult genre has just blown up in the last 10 years. And for some reason in the Christian market, it just is kind of stunted. And I guess, I just would like readers to know that there's more stuff out there like Life After, and to look for it, and to really, when you find a book you like, it makes such a difference when a reader champions the book for you.
Okay. Excellent. And so what can you say about the next book? When will that be out, and what's the title going to be?
Yeah, the next book is called Warfare, and the way that I have the books set up is in the first book, Audrey meets God, and in the second one, the Holy Spirit is a character, and then the third one, Jesus is a character. And so in the second book, the Holy Spirit plays a character, a role in it. And basically what's happened is Audrey settled into her life in the first book, in the afterlife, and come to terms with her job, which is literally she trains to fight demons in the heavenly realm, and then comes down to earth and does it. And in book 2, Satan attacks her family, her living family on earth. And she's faced with the choice on whether to defy God and go down to earth and protect her family, or obey God's commandment, which has been to stay in heaven. And she decides to go down to earth and protect her family, even though God has told her to stay where she is. And so the second book deals with what's going on with her family and earth. Why is Satan targeting them, and just kind of her consequences of going against what the Lord's asked her to do.
Okay. And when will that book be out? I'm sorry.
Oh, right. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, it should be out this fall is what we're shooting for.
Oh, okay. Okay. And
so
the last book? Oh, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
Huntress came out in November of 2015, so we're looking to try to get it out in under a year.
Mm-hmm. Well, good luck with that. I can only imagine the amount of work to get one book out, much less a series like that.
Yeah, I know. Well, and young adults like their books quick, and so I wish that I could get them out faster because I personally hate waiting for books in a series to come out, and I know that my audience doesn't like it either. And so, it would be nice if I could get the last one out in even a quicker time frame than that. So that's kind of what I've got my eyes set on right now. The second book is in the editing phase, and so now it's the third book that I'm kind of my focus is on.
Okay. And so we talked a little bit earlier about who you are, but for the podcast, just if you don't mind, tell me a little bit about your family and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. What we talked about beforehand is I have one daughter, and her name is Ashton. She is actually adopted. We adopted her from Ethiopia when she was 22 months old. She's 4.5 now. And we have her and 2 dogs, and my husband, Lucas. And my husband and I met working actually in youth ministry at our church, which we've been doing off and on for about the past 15 years. So we spent a lot of time working with middle school, high school, and, young 20-year-olds over the last 15 years. And they're just, they're my passion. They're who I like to be around. I like to hang out with them. I like to help them through life's problems and such. And so having a daughter has definitely been a new adventure. Also one of the things that I struggle with on a personal basis is I have chronic Lyme disease, which was really difficult it came up when I started writing the book, and then I caught Lyme disease, and it took me longer to get that first book done than I thought because I was just so terribly ill. And so now I kind of understand what life is like with a chronic illness. I'm on an upswing right now. I've got my energy back. I'm feeling the best I have in the last 5 years, but I certainly have a compassion for people with chronic illness now that I didn't beforehand because I understand what a life changer that is. And so as I'm writing this story about this girl who is struggling with what God's doing in her life, it very much paralleled what I was going through with my illness and our struggle to adopt. It took us 3.5 years to bring our daughter home. I set the book out, that's not what I meant to say. I had the plot and the premise for the book already, but little did I know as while I was writing it, I was going to be going through some stuff that was making me question God's plan and purpose for my life as well.
Definitely a spiritual battle of your own there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it was some of the hardest years of my life that I've encountered so far, between being chronically ill and going through the adoption process, which is, I wish I could say it was easier. It should be easier, but it was pretty heart-wrenching and just long and exhausting.
Well, that's all that I can think of.
I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. I know I mentioned email before, but I really like what you're doing on your site. I think it's great because you're doing more than reviews. They've got kind of a definitely a journalistic edge to them, which is really refreshing to see. That when you are interviewing people and stuff, it's certainly you're talking about issues, and I like that. So. I encourage you to keep on doing what you're doing because I think there's a need for that in the market.
Thank you. It's sometimes I'll get some feedback kind of like that, and sometimes I'm just going, is anybody really even paying attention?
Yeah, I think we all think that sometimes.
Yeah.
I think we all think that sometimes, but no, I was really impressed with what you're doing, and I got some great advice from somebody at a conference I was just at, when I was talking about just some of the extracurricular stuff I was doing on top of my book writing to just generate more awareness or just get my message across and whatever. And they said, write and keep doing stuff like people are listening anyway,